But the film itself is so compelling, and Johnson & Johnson does not appear in it. There is no brand name, there is no logos, there's no product placement. It really is art for the sake of art, audience first, creative first art. And I think that agencies absolutely have a role to play when it comes to entertainment. My name is Shabnam Mogharabi. I'm the general manager and co-founder of Soul Pancake, a media and entertainment company about human connection that I started 10 years ago with actor Rainn Wilson. We're a division of Participant Media, and we primarily focus on entertainment and good storytelling that creates change. Soul Pancake and Participant Media were really interested in this emerging category of content called impact entertainment, the marriage of traditional entertainment with issue and impact. And so we partnered with Brand Storytelling to commission a survey around this emerging category of impact entertainment. We partnered with the Harris Poll and surveyed more than 500 brand marketers. The three main takeaways that we took from the survey that we conducted really fell into three buckets. First was that indifference really is no longer an option. I think historically, brands have shied away from being too controversial or taking too big of a stance on societal issues. But what the survey revealed is that actually 85% of brand marketers believe that staying silent on controversial issues is actually worse than being controversial. It can not only hurt brand awareness, but it can also hurt financial performance as a brand. The second big takeaway that we learned was that there's actually a lack of flow of information. In the C-suite, there's actually a lot of enthusiasm around impact entertainment. They see value in it, they want to invest in it, they think that it strategically aligns around their values, and yet there was a 10 to 15 percentage point difference in the responses that the general marketing audience gave in terms of the interest and enthusiasm in the space of impact entertainment. So it seems that from a vision and leadership perspective, there's a lot of interest in this space of marrying traditional entertainment with impact work, and yet that information isn't getting conveyed down to the folks who have to execute against that vision. The third takeaway that I thought was really interesting was that there's really a purpose gap in the work as well. So what you'll see is that if you ask brand marketers, what are the results you're trying to get from doing this impact entertainment work? Most of them, more than half, are saying it's brand awareness, brand lift, audience engagement, but only 38% are saying that it's actual impact in the issue area they care about and a positive result in that issue area. And so you have brands saying, oh, we want to stand for purpose and we want to create something awesome that means something for the world, yet we're not going to measure that as part of our KPIs. And that's a real disconnect. And I actually think it very much so is a call to arms for the industry and a challenge to say, hey, if you really want to be authentic about your purpose work, about the why of why you exist as a brand, you have to also measure the results in that issue area. When we surveyed the marketers and asked them who they turn to for advice on how to navigate impact entertainment, the number one response was their agencies. And I think that agencies absolutely have a role to play when it comes to entertainment. They can help with the media, the marketing, the distribution of the content. But I do think one of the gaps that they have in terms of information is that they don't necessarily understand the inner workings of Hollywood and traditional entertainment. They don't necessarily understand the film financing world and the packaging world when it comes to traditional entertainment. And they also don't necessarily have the type of creative talent that Hollywood can offer. The way we think about it is there's kind of four buckets that you really need to think about. One is revenue, not sales, but really revenue. Were you able to sell a project? Were you able to get it placed? What does the P&L of the entertainment model look like? The second bucket is really around audience. How is an audience engaging in that? What do the ratings show? What does the viewership show on that piece of content? And how did the audience engage around the issue? The third, related to the purpose gap that we're seeing, is really around the issue area that you created the content for. Did you see a change in that issue area? Was there an uptick in your association as a brand with that issue area and that impact focus? And then finally, and the fourth area really, which a lot of brands don't consider, is prestige. Being in the entertainment business gives you access to talent that you may not be able to work with previously. It gives you access to awards categories and awards functions that you might not be able to have access to otherwise. And so you have to think a little bit differently differently about how you even measure entertainment from your traditional branded content or advertising work. As cable declines and people are living on streaming platforms that aren't interrupted by advertising, how can we actually go to where consumers are? And sometimes that may take a little bit longer than they expect. So Johnson & Johnson spent more than 3 years working on a documentary feature film called 5B. And essentially this film follows and tracks the story of the nurses in San Francisco General Hospital who, in Ward 5B, were treating AIDS patients in the 1980s. And at that time, AIDS was a scary disease. No one knew what to do with it. And these nurses really stepped up and changed the way that patients with HIV and AIDS were treated and cared for. And so Johnson & Johnson said, you know what, we stand for nurses, but we really want to tell this story and tell it in a truly authentic way. So they brought in truly talented, Oscar-nominated and Oscar-winning directors. They partnered with their agency, Studios, to help build this project, and they developed this documentary feature film, and it took several years to get off the ground. But the film itself is so compelling, and Johnson & Johnson does not appear in it. There is no brand name, there is no logos, there's no product placement. It really is art for the sake of art, audience first, creative first art. Now, they've had some amazing success with it. They've been able to take it to Verizon and Riot Studios for their distribution partnership, and they've been able to build a marketing campaign around their standing for nurses alongside that. So the film stands on its own as an amazing piece of entertainment, and then Johnson & Johnson created iHeartRadio spots and 30-second commercials about their work with nurses, celebrating nurses. And so that ecosystem really formed a beautiful matrix where the film was just one element. Even though it took a little bit of time to get off the ground, it really stands on its own as a beautiful piece of art that Johnson & Johnson can use to show leadership in this conversation around the role nurses play in our lives. So Soul Pancake works with tons of brands. We do everything from traditional white label production for hire work to branded content to actually helping brands cultivate and develop their creative strategy, particularly in traditional entertainment. So if they want to work with Soul Pancake, they can just reach out to partners@soulpancake.com and start a conversation saying, hey, I'm interested in exploring this area, and we can sit down and help them prioritize. What does that mean? What are you trying to get into? How are you thinking about content? What role does that play in your larger matrix of how you're engaging with audiences? And we can not only help develop the creative strategy, but then we can bring that to execution and fruition. And if in the traditional entertainment world, that means packaging up talent and looking for distribution and financing, we can help orchestrate and develop that as well. It's one of the things that I think as a traditional entertainment and content studio, we can help brands figure out.